Hi, it's Steve Malzberg, and coming up on this hour of the Steve Malzberg Show, Dylan Byers. He's media reporter for Politico. And have you noticed that reporters from one network are going after reporters from another network for their coverage or too much coverage of the missing Malaysian airliner? We'll talk about that with Dylan. Then the Malzberg panel will weigh in. Economist and professor at the University of Maryland, Peter Marisi, and Newsmax's own Bill Hoffman. And then Sonia Nasseri Cole, founder of Afghanistan World Foundation, author, filmmaker, award-winning documentary, The Black Tulip. I'm sure you've heard of it. She will be here to talk about what Karzai has said today, and that is that he supports Putin. What's he thinking? That, Give Me Five, and much, much more on this hour of the Steve Malzberg Show on Newsmax Television.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Broadcasting live from the Newsmax studios, this is the Steve Malzberg Show. Be a part of the action by calling toll-free 1-877-NEWSMAX. That's 1-877-639-7629. Or email Steve at malzbergshow@newsmax.com. Here is Steve Malzberg.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Big Steve Malzberg Show. In just a few moments, we're going to be joined by Dylan Byers, and we're going to get into this media coverage of the missing Malaysian airline. Of course, today all families were told that all lives have been lost on Flight 370, the missing airliner, that new technology has determined that the flight went down in the remote area of the Indian Ocean, and there are no trace, no survivors, no nothing. We'll talk more about that and the coverage. What's CNN going to do now? I mean, I don't know how they could ever go back to normal coverage. All right, speaking of coverage, ladies and gentlemen, we told you about the story of a college professor. And this college professor, her name is Muriel Miller-Young, at University of California, Santa Barbara. On Friday, she was charged with theft from a person, battery, and vandalism. You think that might be a story? You think that might be a story? Let me refresh your memory of how this happened. There was a pro-life rally on campus. She and two of her accomplices stole a pro-life sign, and ran away with it. And the girls whose sign it was were chasing her. She said, I may be a thief, but you're a terrorist. Why are they a terrorist? Because they're pro-life. And here's some of the video that we had for you.
We're going up the elevator to, sorry, stay out. Thank you. Don't touch me. Hey, don't touch me! And she just pushed my sister as well. I don't care. Get out of our.
You did not pay to go here.
She just assaulted me. You don't want to be. You don't want to be with her.
You've done assault.
You don't want to be near her. She's assaulted. The police are coming. You don't want to be with her. One of you, please.
There's a
woman who's a professor.
I don't want to put my hand. Just move.
And there's.
Bye.
Sorry. All right, no, I don't. Bring it up, please. I don't know. Hey, now stop touching me. Other students are going. You're gonna hurt yourself. Don't touch me.
Please go with.
Don't take me.
Okay, folks, so this woman, as you could see, not doing a good thing, and she's been charged, and in fact, she's been indicted, formally indicted on Friday. And have you heard about it? Have you seen it in the media? Have you seen the press attention? It was minimal press attention at best. Very minimal press attention at best. And our friends at the Media Research Center and Newsbusters talks about the fact that it was hardly noticeable. I mean, a college professor stealing a sign, vandalism, a battery, theft from a person, and nobody cares. Had this been the other way around, had this been a conservative professor, are there any at a university taking a sign, a pro-abortion sign or a right-to-choose sign? Oh my God! Dianne Feinstein would have been up on the floor of the Senate making an issue out of this. You could bet that. But the media is happy just being basically silent on it. All right, folks, we're going to be joined shortly, I do believe, by our guest Dylan Byers, media reporter for Politico.com. And here's what I want to show you. I want you to give a listen to this and watch this video talking about CNN.
They can't rule out that possible measure to protect the country in case this airliner has been hijacked and in case it could be aimed at the state of Israel.
They can't rule it out. They can't rule it out. There are real people who are really hurting right now at the center of this tragedy, and there are real people working their tails off to try to bring about some resolution of this. You can cover that all you want. But do not use mystery and its presence as an excuse to further whatever boogeyman you choose to make your audience scared of. That is the grown-up version of monsters underneath the bed. And our job is not to fill the air by telling bedtime stories.
Ladies and gentlemen, that is priceless, coming from Chris Hayes on MSNBC. Now, I agree. The coverage of this on CNN has been outrageous. But you see, methinks that the problem that Chris Hayes has is that CNN is beating MSNBC. CNN is beating MSNBC now all of a sudden. Round the clock they're beating them. Why? Because of their missing airliner. And Chris Hayes is probably a little offended that his highbrow, radical left-wing ideology that poses as a TV show can possibly be beat by CNN and their round-the-clock incessant over and over and over regurgitating nothing. It has become the Seinfeld coverage of an event. It's coverage of nothing, and the coverage itself is nothing, because until this morning, for the last couple of weeks, there's been nothing new. You know, the pilot made a phone call. Breaking news, the pilot made a phone call before he got on board the plane. Did the pilot go to the bathroom? I mean, come on. Wolf Blitzer asked a panel of experts, is it unusual for a pilot to make a cell phone call before he gets on the plane? They looked at each other and said, no. And Wolf says, I didn't think so. Breaking news, mind you. So it's ridiculous. But it's working for them in the ratings, so they're going to keep doing it over and over until people stop watching it. And they're covering nothing else, basically. Nothing else. But for Chris Hayes, whose network is a propaganda machine for the Democrat Party, for Chris Hayes, whose network is filled with loons, who everything you say, if you're a conservative, is racist or homophobic. You're either a racist or a homophobe or a xenophobe, usually a racist. You're all racist. All conservatives are racist. Then they could be homophobes on top of that, xenophobes on top of that, and, you know, it's bowed down to Barack Obama and trash conservatives. That's all it's about on that network. That's all it's about. All right, joining us right now to give us his take on it is Dylan Byers, media reporter for Politico. Hey, Dylan, welcome aboard, sir. Good to talk to you. We just played the Chris Hayes soundbite video where he, you know, blasts CNN for their coverage of the Malaysian airliner, which I thought, you know, was a little out of line, because I think there's plenty to criticize about MSNBC's coverage of just about everything, from my point of view anyway. But let me ask you a more generalized question. What's CNN going to do now? I mean, now that the Malaysian Prime Minister came out and said what he said today, does that just open up another week or two of another kind of avenue for them to go down over and over and over?
Sure. I think, you know, we were getting to a point here with this search for the plane where there really were no new developments. And you see CNN really struggling, like most networks, really struggling to sort of make news where they can, and where they can't, sort of invite people on to come up with hypothetical theories about what might have happened to this plane, which was actually a huge boon to the network in terms of ratings. But really, it was sort of the story which was sort of beginning to take a back seat and you know, refocusing on things like Ukraine and other stories in the news. And now this just gives them a whole you know, fodder for at least another week of coverage, if not more.
And you know, and you wonder, okay, if people just haven't been watching CNN and they hear us talking, they might be saying, well, what the heck are they going to say for another week? Any family member they could find. They've been doing family members of other disasters. Yeah, I mean, it's just anything remotely they could find. To be honest with you, if I was doing a show there, I think I'd be looking for a rope.
Yeah, well, you know, I mean, I think there are probably a lot of people at CNN who are getting really exhausted with covering this story and would like to turn to something else. And I think you can tell when some of the anchors are starting to entertain, supernatural theories that it's probably time to switch over to a news story. So yeah, I think the truth is this story has gone on long enough, and certainly it's gone on long enough for the families who are involved, and I think they want some closure to all this.
No.
And there's just a lot going on in the world right now that probably deserves more attention.
Absolutely. But what do you think of Chris Hayes? And I assume you've heard that. If not, I could play it again for you. But what do you think of Chris Hayes knocking, CNN? It's kind of unusual for one network to I mean, it happens, but it's not all that frequently.
Sure, and I'm actually not familiar with the clip, but you don't need to worry about playing it again, because we've seen this sort of criticism coming at CNN from MSNBC in other venues. And the truth is MSNBC does its fair share of calling things breaking news when it's not, of covering this plane. I mean, look, it doesn't matter what channel you are. It doesn't matter if you're center, right, left, whatever. You're in this game for ratings, and you're trying to boost ratings. And every channel has tried to ride the plane story to better ratings, and MSNBC is no exception. So, maybe Chris Hayes is doing it less than some of his colleagues, but his colleagues are certainly out there doing it.
Yeah, and Chuck Todd, of course, you wrote a piece about Chuck Todd also taking aim at CNN.
Right, and I think what you see with Chuck Todd is, you have guys. We always look at these channels and think about them as channels as a whole. And the truth is you have different personalities, different individuals who want different things. I think Chuck Todd would really love to just talk about politics for the rest of his life and never have to deal with this plane story again. It doesn't change the fact that you don't throw stones in glass houses, and that's what Chuck Todd did. And MSNBC is an enormous glass house.
Yeah, and you make a great point. Criticizing as Chuck Todd did. Wait, so when did Finding Nothing get characterized as breaking news? He tweeted that out. But you're absolutely right. I mean, we could all point to instances on probably all of them where they come back, breaking news, and it's something that happened the day before, or it's no breaking news at all. They all do it now, and they've really abused that. I don't want to say privilege, but they've abused that moniker, and it really cheapens it for when there is breaking news, I think.
It completely cheapens it, and it's a boy who's cried wolf scenario, because eventually you're going to get to the point where people are going to, watch CNN and it's going to say breaking news, and maybe there will be breaking news, but they'll think, this is the same old thing we've seen from CNN, from MSNBC. They're just saying this to sort of rope us in and get us to not change the channel. People are going to get really, really tired of it. I mean, look, people don't like feeling like they're being duped. They just don't.
Let me ask you a question, speaking of duped maybe. This whole Michelle Obama to China with the family and at taxpayers' expense, but no American media. How do you weigh in on that? Because obviously most of the media, although in their coverage of the trip, you don't hear it mentioned. They use whatever video or whatever is becoming available, and they talk about it in glowing terms. Oh, she's so fashionable. Oh, she's this. Oh, she's that. But, she didn't let the media come along. What do you make of that?
Yeah, well, it was clearly a frustration for a lot of American media organizations. Clearly, it was a frustration for the New York Times, which made a point of it in the first paragraph of their story before she left on that trip. And yes, there is some coverage. We've been picking up some sort of B-roll footage, and there have been some photographs, and she's done some Q&As and things like that. I just think, look, is Michelle Obama going to make a lot of news on this trip? No. Is it a problem that she's going on this trip? No. I actually think trips to China by high-ranking American officials or their families are not a bad thing. But look, all the American media wants is just a little bit of access. And if you're going to go visit China, which is an incredibly important country right now, experiencing a lot of growth, U.S.-Chinese relations are an incredibly important developing story. Let the reporters come. Just let them come. Hey, that's what I feel.
Dylan, a pleasure talking to you, sir. Hope you'll come back. Thank you for your time.
Yeah, anytime. Thank you.
Thank you. Dylan Byers, ladies and gentlemen, a media reporter for Politico. I like saying Politico in that manner, .com. And when we come back, you know it, you love it. It's the Malzberg panel. It'll be here. Peter Marisi will be here. And, and our own Bill Hoffman. Steve Malzberg Show on Newsmax Television.
We don't just talk about the news. We talk to those making news. This is the Steve Malzberg Show.